Hi, everybody. It's Ciara, the teen librarian for Pueblo Library. I work at Rawlings. I'm actually making this at home. There's a kitten. Well, they're about, I don't know how old they are. They don't look like kittens anymore, but they act like kittens, and they might try and mess with this. So if they do, I'll deal with it and try and keep them from totally screwing it up. So I'm going to give a book talk today. And the book is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. It's one of my favorite books from 2020. And I'm going to be honest. I've been guilty of ignorant, uncritical thinking about genre. What I mean to say about that is that, sorry, I wrote this down so I wouldn't totally mess it up. Is that I haven't thought of myself as a fan of fantasy. But this book and a few others have shown me that how I'd been thinking about genre. I'm going back in time before I could say my R's when I was a kid. There's my cat being insane. Sorry, the way I thought about genre was reductive and basically poorly conceived. And sorry, I'm off because he's distracting me. This is Vladimir, by the way. So basically, what I don't like is formula, and I had been kind of stupid to attach that word to something like genre, which really describes a serious element of the book, right? And fantasy involves being committed to a sort of world building, and bad fantasy is formulaic, but there's a lot of great fantasy, and I knew that to some degree because I'm a fan of Ursula Le Guin, but anyway, I just wanted to admit that rubbishy feeling that I once had and that I have overcome thanks to a bunch of books I've read relatively recently. And actually, I would have said the same thing about romance because I'm just kind of a jerk. But again, my thinking has been sort of brilliantly turned inside out by Cemetery Boys. So I'm going to show you the book now. Ooh, Cemetery Boys. Ah, nope. Sorry, that's Barnabas. There we go. Aiden Thomas. Mine is a little bit overdue, but I will be returning it today. They're being bad because that's their job, 5 or 6 months old. And whenever I have a computer, they just want to run on it. So I'm not trying to keep them from doing that. So anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the book after all of that about my rubbishy thinking about genre. The protagonist is Yadril, and his entire extended family and community has been blessed and gifted. Sorry, I'm like keeping my cat away. By Santa Muerte, the Lady of Death. At their quinces, the young men and women are presented to Lady Death to receive their gifts. And brujas, the young women, receive the ability to heal with their portajes, which is a rosary. And so they can call on Santa Muerte and do a little ritual, and they can heal people, quite remarkably heal people. And brujos receive the ability to summon a spirit and also release it to the afterlife with their portajes, which are daggers. But the book begins, actually, yeah, they're going to wrestle up there now. The book begins with Yadriel performing his ceremony in secret, um, with only one of his closest friends, probably his only real friend, um, Maritza, who is a bruja who's sort of similarly outcast. She's a vegan, and so she refuses to use animal blood, which is involved in all of the ceremonies. But she still has the gift, but she's sort of um, she's a bit of an outcast. But she believes in him, and so he successfully performs the ceremony. And why must he do it in secret without his community there? Yadriel is trans, and basically the one person in his community who understood that he is meant to be a brujo, not a bruja, was his mother. But his mother has passed away. And the rest of his community, including his father, oh my God, what are you guys doing? His father, who's sort of the leader of the brujos, sort of don't recognize that and won't let him do it. And they tried to get him to do the ceremony for the brujas, but he said, no, I'm not a woman. I'm not a bruja. And so he's been left out, and that's why he does it himself in secret. And his only support, comes from Maritza and his tío, whose powers are very weak, and in that way he has also been sort of outcast. But Lady Death does recognize Yadriel and blesses him with his powers. And he's able to call forth the spirit of Julian. Yadriel recognizes him a little bit as this sort of tough guy who wasn't often in school, but was kind of a bad boy, kind of tough, intimidating. And he calls him forth, but when he can't actually send him to the afterlife, what happens is there's a golden thread that runs from the spirit to their portaje, right? And Julian's is a St. Jude medal, and it can't be cut. The dagger won't cut it. And when that's the case, it means that something has to be dealt with before he can be released to the afterlife. So Yadriel's sort of thinking, okay, we've got to find what it is that needs to be dealt with before he can move on. And so it's about time for Yadriel to go home before he gets in trouble for being out too late. And pretty much as he's doing the ceremony, right around that time, he and Maritza both have this incredible pain in their chest. And it's a pain that Brujex feel when one of their community dies. And so they know that someone has died. And so, they get back, and it's complicated because Yadriel has to sort of hide Julian and get him to his room. Regular people can't see Julian, he's a spirit, but everyone in his community can see him because they're all gifted. So he has to sort of get him into his room so that nobody sees him, and then he finds out that his cousin, Miguel, who had been sort of on duty in the cemetery, is missing. And everyone in the community has felt that intense pain. And, but of course, Yadriel, not being a brujo, according to the community and to his father, is not sort of asked to help look for him, which is another form of alienation and discrimination that he faces. Ouch. Put your claws in. And so he sort of has to try and figure out, what's keeping Julian here. He needs to solve something. So he spends a lot of time with Julian, traveling to different places, meeting his friends, etc., because he's worried about his friends. And he does remember one of his friends getting jumped in the park, but he doesn't remember anything after that. And so as he's spending all this time with Julian, he's getting to know him better. And they're falling in love. Julian is not the guy he thought he was, and it's obviously more complicated than that. But as the book progresses, there's a connection between the fact that Julian's body. Nobody knows where Julian's body is, and no one can find Miguel's body. And those two things end up connected. I'm not going to tell you anything else, but this is a beautiful book, and you fall in love with Yadriel, and Julian raises some really great issues for Yadriel that he has to face for why he's trying to be accepted so badly, and why it's so important to him. But I love this book. It's beautifully written, and the story is amazing. Literally, I was on my lunch break, and I was reading it, and then I realized my lunch break was over, and I had to stop. It was so painful. I just wanted to keep reading and finish it, but I had to go back to work. It was terrible. But finished work, went home, finished. I recommend this book to everyone. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's a wonderful read. The story is fantastic. I can't recommend it any more. Definitely one of my favorite books of 2020. I hope I haven't given anything away that shouldn't be given away. But before I go, I just want to say we all miss you. And we would love for this pandemic to be over. We are hoping, that vaccines can get out faster. And we also hope that not only are you guys staying healthy in terms of COVID, but taking care of yourselves mentally. This has been, the last year and going forward, considering what's happened recently, has been incredibly stressful and isolating. And I want everybody to know that if it's been affecting you, if you're feeling terrible, if you're feeling scared, there's something wrong with you. But I do want you to ask for help. Colorado Crisis Services is amazing. You can call them. You can go there. They are willing to listen no matter what your problem is. No matter, no issue is too small or too big. And the situation we're in right now is not normal, especially, for younger people. Well, for everyone, but especially for younger people, for whom spending time with your friends is pretty much the most important thing. And when you can't do that, it's no joke. Okay? So if you're worried, if you're feeling down, please reach out for help and let somebody know. I've definitely had some rough times. So, and I've reached out. So, until next week, take care of yourselves, and I will see you again.